They take the hammer and they bring it down hard, right here in front of the camera. And he jumps because he feels like he's where he's sitting, where he sees himself to be, even though his body's in front of him. And that kind of starts to clinch this idea that what we see even adds further to our sense of digital presence. We're hardwired to adopt these representations of ourselves as real. So I started using this concept for something I began to call immersive journalism. And I was using gaming platforms to, in virtual environments, to convey news, documentary, and nonfiction stories. Immersive journalism is got some very pretty standard tenets. You put the audience at a virtual reconstruction of a scene. It's made using regular journalistic techniques where you're finding video, audio, photographs, etc. And then you bring together the sense of presence, and you utilize, with that goggles, that feeling I was just describing to you, to make people feel like they're actually on scene, like they're witnessing the sights and sounds of a experience. So after I made Hunger, I was commissioned by the World Economic Forum to make a piece about Syria. So this is a little bit about that piece. That was a big budget increase for me when we were at $35,000 now, instead of $700. But to give you an idea of the kind of work that we do to really make things accurate, this is a blueprint, a Bible, in which we really divide up all the scenes. Here's a little bit more of a close-up just of the explosion scene itself. And you can see how carefully we try to reproduce in the virtual world all the different elements that are mirrored in the physical world. So similarly, we tried to create models that resembled the children's faces. And again, this has moved so fast that a lot of these technologies I'm going to talk about in a minute are become easier and easier to do. But at the World Economic Forum, we had Peter Gabriel or John McCain, and you can imagine the type of leaders there, and of course, the amazing Syria contingent. So here's the next interesting part. We were invited to take it to the London Victoria and Albert Museum, one of the world's most renowned museums. But they didn't advertise it. So anybody who happened to come through just saw us with our crazy cameras and this reindeer lit up headgear. And yet, after I guess it was about 5 days, we ended up with 54 pages of guest book comments. And I was told by curators they'd never seen an outpouring of commentary like that. And it's just, absolutely believable, quite frightening, absolutely fascinating, a real feeling as if you're in the middle of something that you normally see on TV news, right? Which, as a journalist, is incredible.
Nonny, you shortly described this during your presentation. I read somewhere that the analyst predicts that wearable electronics will be an $18 billion industry by 2019. That's the same amount as the entire global airline industry will make this year. This is huge. How would you recommend the audience to prepare for that?
Well, the first thing I would say is try to stay open-minded, right? Because it is not just going to be the purview of gamers. There's many, many ways this can be utilized. And one way to think about it is in your business right now, because if it's, first off, very simply, its possibility as a communication tool, what do you do with photographs? What do you do with film? So virtual reality can take that next step for you to communicate to people and get your message out and help people understand more deeply what your business is about.
You mentioned your intern, Palmer Luckey, the founder of the VR headset, who landed this deal with Facebook, a $2 billion deal with Facebook. Good job. But what sort of difference has that deal made for your work?
So when that deal happened, I texted Palmer and basically just said, thank you very much, because I knew my entire life was going to change. I mean, I used to have colleagues pointing their finger at me going, you can't do that. That'll never work. I'm not kidding you. I swear to God, this was not an easy journey. But after Palmer sold the company, suddenly everybody went like, wow, maybe there's something here. And all this money and energy went into it. So like I said, I don't have to build headsets anymore. there's so many interesting minds working in this field that it's advancing so rapidly. So the 4 years it took for us to go from our duct tape goggles to a commercially available one, I'm going to guess that that's going to be cut in half by what kind of things are going to be available, tools for making and sharing content in the next couple of years.
On one of the programs I did on TV recently, I actually tried these 3D goggles in regards of phobics, how to cure phobics. And it was pretty amazing. And I'm just wondering, for all these guys here today, what kind of impact will VR have for the next 12 months?
Next 12 months, next 12 years, next 12 months. Well, we're going to see people like PlayStation are offering people like my company a channel. So we're going to suddenly see what's the rise, even in the next 12 months, what are we going to see of the new networks? What's the new BBCs of the future in virtual reality? I think we're going to start to see that. We're also going to start to see very, very innovative networking experiences. That's going to be one of the biggest things that's going to happen in the next 12 months is right now, VR, you tend to do it as a one-person only experience, but it's going to be networked very soon where people are going to come in and be in shared spaces. I mean, I often tell the story of my son was in the living room with his laptop open, and my daughter was in the garage, and she walks into the living room, and he said, in the garage office, and he says to her, "Why'd you leave?" But she just walked in. But what he meant was, why did you leave the Minecraft server we were playing on together? That shared space is very natural for that age group. And in the next 12 months, we're going to see those kind of shared spaces really, I think, erupt.
But as you sit in the audience, you look at us talking here and seeing your presentation, you say, wow, it sounds amazing. But how can I really use it in my line of business? What would be your advice to actually maybe think differently if you want to think about VR as a business possibility?
So, I mean, that's one thing I often am really quite good at is being a translator because people think that it doesn't really apply because often I show the content pieces. But, for example, we're working with the Wells Fargo's innovation team now to think about how do you do spatial data visualization, right? How do you do better customer service? How can people engage more with actions like saving or in some way that make positive effects in their lives. So again, we don't experience the world in a 2D page or even in the box of the screen. We experience the world with our whole body, with everything around us, and we should be experiencing communication in the same way. And so I would suggest that as a business leader to think that. That we, I even laugh because I think about everybody looks at that Minority Report and he's sliding data around, right? And it seems all futuristic. But what he's sliding around is this square little page, right? He's not thinking about data in a much broader, bigger, spatialized way. So that's something that you have to kind of push aside, like, we don't need a chart. You don't need to put a chart in a virtual world. That's not going to do you any good. What you need to do is give people an understanding of what the data means. So if you want to help people understand what your business is and how they can, why they want it, and how it can change their lives, and how it can be helpful, and what are the things that you're focused on, virtual reality offers an opportunity to communicate that, and that's really unparalleled.
So if we look a bit ahead in the future, let's say 12 years from now, how do you imagine that VR will be a part of our daily life? Can you describe a picture for us?
Yeah, so I think the one thing will happen for sure is virtual reality and augmented reality are going to merge. So, and here's the difference. In virtual reality, you put the goggles on and you're fully immersed in one kind of a world. With augmented reality, you're augmenting your reality. You're adding data on top so that you can get information. So I think that, I'm really bad at recognizing faces, and I'll be so happy when augmented reality will be able to tell me who it is I'm talking to, and it's probably somebody I spoke to 15 minutes ago, but thank God I'll have some goggles on to help me avoid that embarrassment. So that'll be one way I think it'll be used. I think people, my husband is directionally challenged. I can get anywhere after 10 years. I've been there once. That's my good thing. He doesn't know his left from his right, so thank God the goggles will tell him so I don't have to yell at him, no, you're other left. So those are the kind of things I imagine in people's daily lives that will occur. I also think that there'll be fun things like kids will probably be having, virtual sprites So instead of having to have tattoos on your body, you'll have all those little augmented tattoos that'll, you know, wiggle around and move. Again. That's what's going to happen with AI. There'll be all these, actually, you know, when you yell at somebody, maybe the augmented reality character will, you know, yell at you back for the person. I don't know. Anyway, I'm riffing here now. Sorry.
Well, it's interesting to jump into your vision about the future.
Yeah, but
so, Nonny, today we also talked about advices. What has been the best career advice you ever had, you ever received, that you can share that we can learn from?
So, I'm a woman, and I'm not very often in technology. I'm in a technology business without often another woman in the space, in the room. I was called tenacious. And so somebody said to me afterwards, you know, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? You know, and we had to have this discussion. And I think the advice I got was really, really good, which is you need to just always assume that's a positive space to go. And in fact, I ended up saying to the other CEO who called me tenacious, I said, thank you very much. That was a really wonderful compliment because it has been a really difficult journey. And then that CEO became one of my best friends and backers. So it was to take those things that sometimes makes me feel defensive or make you feel defensive, or maybe you think of it as maybe a negative comment, and try to turn it into a positive thing and bring that person on the other side on that positive ride with you, that positive journey.
Thank you for that advice. Ladies and gentlemen, Nonny de la Peña.